The year is 390 BCE. Rome is burning. Celtic warriors roam the streets, slaughtering anyone they find. The once promising city on 7 hills appears doomed to be nothing but ash and memory. Yet somehow, from these flames, the greatest empire the Western world has ever known will rise. Talk about a comeback story that makes Rocky look like amateur hour. How does a city that was sacked and nearly destroyed transform into a power that would one day rule from Britain to Babylon? That's the story we're about to explore. A tale of history's most successful overachievers with a serious case of territorial FOMO. Every empire needs a foundation myth, and Rome's is particularly savage. Romulus and Remus, abandoned twins suckled by a wolf before Romulus murdered his brother to claim the new settlement as his own. Let that sink in. Rome's origin story involves fratricide. Family dinners must have been awkward after that. For its first centuries, Rome was merely one Latin city-state among many in central Italy. But something set the Romans apart. A relentless drive and a unique approach to conquest that basically boiled down to, fight us and lose? Congratulations, you're Roman now. Here's your complimentary citizenship application and spear. By 338 BCE, Rome had crushed the Latin League, a coalition of neighboring city-states. Next fell the Samnites, mountain warriors who initially humiliated Roman legions at the Caudine Forks, forcing them to march under a yoke of spears, a disgrace Rome would repay with near-genocidal vengeance in subsequent campaigns. Ever held a grudge for a week? Romans held them for generations. The pattern was established early. Rome might lose battles, but it never accepted defeat in war. This stubborn resilience would become their trademark. Think of Rome as that friend who absolutely refuses to acknowledge they're lost while driving, except with swords and a body count. Within a century, the Italian peninsula lay under Roman control, but Roman eyes were already looking across the narrow waters to Sicily and the Mediterranean beyond. After all, why stop at a boot-shaped peninsula when there's a whole sea surrounded by conquerable real estate? Imagine the Mediterranean as a lake, with 2 superpowers locked in a death struggle for control. In one corner, Rome, a land-based Italian power with a newly built navy. In the other, Carthage, a North African maritime empire with centuries of naval dominance. It's the ancient equivalent of a tech startup challenging Google, except the disruption involved actual spears. The First Punic War, 264 to 241 BCE, began over Sicily, but evolved into the largest naval war of antiquity. Rome, with virtually no naval tradition, innovated brutally effective tactics. The Corvus boarding bridge that turned sea battles into land battles on floating platforms. Imagine telling experienced Carthaginian sailors, "Sorry, we don't know how to naval battle properly, so we're just going to put a land battle on your boat." But it was the Second Punic War that would produce Rome's greatest nightmare, Hannibal Barca. A 26-year-old general leading 40,000 men and 37 war elephants across the snow-covered Alps, appearing in northern Italy when Romans thought him safely contained in Spain. For 16 years, Hannibal ravaged Italy. At Cannae, he executed a double envelopment that trapped and annihilated 70,000 Roman soldiers in a single day, still studied in military academies worldwide. How did Rome respond to this military genius? By essentially saying, "This is fine," while refusing to negotiate. Instead, they sent armies to attack Carthage directly, forcing Hannibal's recall. At Zama in 202 BCE, Scipio Africanus defeated Hannibal, earning the rare honor of taking his nickname from conquered territory. Ancient influencer culture at its finest. The Third Punic War wasn't really a war at all, just Rome's merciless destruction of a rebuilt Carthage. Cato the Elder ended every Senate speech with "Carthage must be destroyed," regardless of the topic, including what to have for lunch, according to some historians. In 146 BCE, Rome obliged, razing the city and allegedly salting the earth. Ever been so angry you wanted to make sure nothing ever grew there again? Rome actually did it. Have you ever defeated someone only to immediately start copying everything about them? That's Rome with Greece. History's most severe case of admire your enemy's aesthetic while looting their homes. By 146 BCE, Macedonia and Greece had fallen to Roman legions. But even as Roman generals were shipping Greek statues back to Italy by the thousands, they were falling under the spell of Hellenic culture faster than modern parents adopting their teenagers' slang to seem cool. The Roman elite soon considered it essential to speak Greek, study Greek philosophy, and employ Greek tutors for their children. They consumed Greek literature and art while simultaneously expanding their dominion over Greek territories. As Horace famously put it, captive Greece captured her savage conqueror. The original cultural appropriation, except the Greeks were probably thinking, at least they're not destroying it. This cultural assimilation gave Rome something perhaps more valuable than territories: legitimacy. By absorbing and adapting Greek culture, Rome positioned itself as the heir to classical civilization, not just another conquering power. It's like beating someone at their own game and then claiming you invented the game all along. The Eastern Mediterranean offered something else Rome desperately needed: wealth beyond Italian imagination. As generals like Lucullus and Pompey pushed into Asia Minor, Syria, and Judea, the treasures flowing back to Rome transformed the Republic forever. Have you ever seen someone win the lottery and immediately lose all financial sense? That was Rome discovering Eastern wealth. While his rivals were claiming glory in the wealthy East, Julius Caesar chose a different path: north, into the barbaric lands of Gaul. It was a political gambit that would change European history forever and give us one of history's most quotable egomaniacs. From 58 to 50 BCE, Caesar systematically conquered what is now France, Belgium, and parts of Germany, documenting his exploits in his Commentaries on the Gallic War, perhaps history's most successful military campaign memoir written in the third person. Who refers to themselves in the third person? Caesar did, that's who. His conquest of Gaul demonstrated both military genius and ruthlessness. At Alesia, he built a double ring of fortifications, one facing in to trap the Gallic leader Vercingetorix, another facing out to repel reinforcements. When you're Caesar, you don't just build a wall, you build two in opposite directions, because overachieving is your brand. Caesar claimed to have killed or enslaved over 1 million Gauls. Likely an exaggeration, but the conquest was devastating enough that archaeologists can identify a Caesar layer in the soil where population and activity dramatically declined. Talk about leaving your mark on history. Caesar's is literally detectable in the dirt. His success made him immensely popular with Roman citizens, but terrified the Senate. When ordered to disband his army and return to Rome, Caesar instead crossed the Rubicon River with his troops, an act of open rebellion, allegedly uttering "Alea iacta est," the die is cast. History's most dramatic way of saying, too late to take it back now. After Caesar's death, his teenage grandnephew and adopted son Octavian emerged from the ensuing chaos through a combination of ruthlessness, brilliant propaganda, and outliving his enemies. Not bad for a sickly youth who was initially dismissed by Mark Antony as a boy who owes everything to a name. Octavian defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra at Actium in 31 BCE, becoming sole ruler of the Roman world. Then, in a political masterstroke, he restored the Republic while actually creating the empire. He handed power back to the Senate, who promptly gave it right back with a new title: Augustus, the revered one. It's like saying, I don't want the last slice of pizza when you absolutely do. Under Augustus, Roman expansion focused on securing natural frontiers: the Rhine and Danube rivers in Europe, the Sahara in Africa, and the Euphrates in the east. His ambitions in Germany were thwarted in 9 CE when 3 legions were annihilated in the Teutoburg forest, a defeat so traumatic that Augustus would reportedly wander his palace at night crying, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions!" Despite this setback, Augustus established the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of relative stability that allowed Roman civilization to flourish across the Mediterranean world. Relative being the key word, there were still plenty of frontier wars, just not in places Romans considered important. If a war happens in the provinces and no one in Rome hears it, did it really happen? The division between East and West became permanent after Constantine. The Eastern Empire, centered on Constantinople, would endure for another 1,000 years as the Byzantine Empire, Rome's most successful spin-off series. The Western Empire, however, entered a death spiral of territorial losses. Britain was abandoned in 410 CE, Rome ghosting an entire province. Germanic tribes crossed the frontiers in increasing numbers, sometimes as invaders, sometimes as settlers or allies. The sack of Rome by Visigoths in 410 CE shocked the Mediterranean world. St. Jerome lamented, The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken. Imagine if aliens landed in New York today. That's how unthinkable Rome's fall seemed. By 476 CE, when Germanic general Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman emperor, ironically named Romulus Augustulus, Little Augustus, most Western provinces were under the control of various Germanic kingdoms. The circle was complete. Rome began with Romulus and ended with a Romulus, history's most theatrical bookend. So the next time you drive on a straight road, live under a domed structure, or use a calendar with July and August, named for Julius and Augustus Caesar, remember, you're experiencing echoes of the greatest empire the Western world has ever known. Like and subscribe for more epic journeys through history's greatest empires.